Sometimes text animation just works. In this video, we will break down the essentials of text animation in After Effects. If you are new to After Effects, this is the perfect place to start. We will go over the key fundamentals and the right way to use text animators to ensure smooth, readable motion. By the end, you will be able to create these animations yourself with confidence. Finally, we will also take a look at how AI can assist in text animation. This is specifically by using a tool called SubmagicAi, who are actually our sponsor for today, but more on that later. A text animation that we see a lot in top brands' videos is where a word transitions in a whole sentence like this. So let's start by seeing how we can create exactly this animation. So I am in a new composition here. I have just this simple background in here. We will talk about this later on. So we're simply going to pick the text tool and type in the first word. And we are simply going to pick that layer and we are going to align it horizontally and align it vertically using the align tool from here and make sure that it is centered in here from the paragraph settings. Then we are going to find the spot where we would like to transition to the next word, simply hold Shift-Command-D to split that layer. And now we have two layers, and we can simply double-click on this layer and type in whatever we like in here. So in here, I'm going to type in my new sentence, and we are basically done from the first transition. So we can see this word transitioning to the next sentence just like that. Now, the problem in here is that this transition is not smooth enough, so you can see the jump. And one thing that brands use a lot to make their animation more dynamic and to make it look more professional is to actually make these transitions 100% seamless, so you won't really recognize when a word switches into the other word. At the end of this video, we are going to actually see a technique that you can apply to any text transition. So basically, any word to another word in here would transition seamlessly. But for now, let's start our animation on this sentence to reveal it. Now, one thing that you can do is to actually hit T on your keyboard and animate the opacity from here. But in this case, you don't have specific control on each word in here. Certain people would split this in multiple layers and play with the opacity, but this of course is not the fastest way to do it. The way to go is to actually use Text Animators. If you don't know what they are, don't worry, we are going to explain everything about them. So let's open this layer. And we're going to go to this little button here next to Animate. And if we click that, we are going to be presented with this menu. And from here, we can select the property that we would like to animate. So I would like to reveal this using a simple opacity. So I'm going to click on opacity. And now our first text animator is right over here. These text animators, you can actually rename them. I like to rename these to have everything organized. So I'm going to rename this to animator and then opacity in, because this is going to be the transition in, and then character, because I am going to reveal one character at a time. Let's go directly to opacity, and from here we can tweak the opacity just as we would with the normal transform opacity. But in this case, if I make it to 0% in here, we are going to be offered with some more control. And that control comes in from the range selector. So let's open that up. And from here, we are presented with three options. So start, end, and offset. What are they? If we zoom up in here, we can see this little text cursor right over here and this little text cursor right over here. This start would move this first text cursor in here. So let's move the start text cursor. And as you can see, this moves the start text cursor like that. And for the end, we can move that as well. And you can see that moving like that. So basically, what is happening is that the 0% opacity is only affecting the area between these text cursors. And another cool way to move these would be actually to pick it from right over here. So you can click the middle exactly in here and you can select exactly where we would like to animate, just like this. So let's set this back to 0% and this to 100%. And what I would like to do in this case is to only animate the last two words. So the first two words, I would like them to be there directly and only animate the last two words. So I'm going to move this from right over here. You can of course select it from here as well, but I find this way much more precise. And here we have text animation that we're not going to touch, and then we're going to animate these last two words right over here. To animate them, we can of course use the start and end directly, but in this case I'm going to use the offset. The offset basically would offset the value in here from the start to the end. So if we go from 0% to 100, you can see that working like that. And like that, from 0 to 100, we are only affecting this area. If we had this at the start in here at 0%, you can see that now it is affecting this whole area. So let's undo that. And we are going to simply click on the stopwatch in here, move a second, and we are going to go to 100% in here. That way you can see if we play this that this word is being revealed. Now I'm going to pick both of these keyframes and hit F9 on my keyboard just to ease these keyframes and make it smoother. And now if I play this animation, you can see that this word is being revealed like that. So this is nice, but it is not smooth at all at this point. What I would like to add is actually some position animation to actually make this a little bit more interesting. So to do this, we are going to select this text layer in here. Let's close this one. We are going to go to Animate and we are going to click on Position. And this way we are now going to affect the position. Rename this to Animator Overall Position, and we are going to basically use this animator just like we would use a transform position. We are not going to use the range selector in this case, but we are going to use just the position attribute in here. What I would like to do in this case is to keyframe this. So we're going to go from around this space in here where the text is completely centered in here. Then we're going to click on the stopwatch, go to where the other keyframe is, or you can even go a little bit more backwards in here, and we are going to put that back to 0 so that it's 100% in center. What I like to do is basically keep my text in center so that it is more visible. Now I'm going to select this keyframe in here. We're going to go to the graph editor and we are going to click on this little button here, ease in, and this way we can pull this handle. And we're going to go right over here as well, hit F9 on our keyboard or click this button in here to make that smooth as well. And now with this curve, what is going to happen is that it's going to start slow in here, goes fast and ends very slow. So the steeper it is, the faster the animation would be. So let's go back and see how that looks. And now you can see that the transition is much smoother. There's still some work to be done, but we will retouch everything at the end where we will see how to actually make seamless transitions with our text. Go back to our reference and see what we will be creating next. So in this case, we have this full sentence, and if we scrub through the animation here, we can see that it is being removed, it is disappearing and blends into this new sentence in here. So let's go back to our text tutorial and we are going to work on this little part right over here to make these words disappear. So let's add another animator. We're going to select the layer, go to Animate, click the button, and we want to add an opacity animator as well in here. Let's rename that to Animator Opacity Out. Go ahead and go to opacity and set that to 0%. The whole sentence disappears in this case. Now let's open the range selector. And now if we scrub through the offset, we can see that this is actually revealing the sentence and not removing it. What I would like in this case is to have the sentence right in here. And I would like to, from a full value, from a full opacity, go to a 0% opacity. So let's see how we can do that. We can go to Advanced, and if we go to Mode right over here, we can see that we have this little function here that is set to add. If we inverse that, so it would be subtract, we can see now that these little cursors in here, when you move them, are actually now subtracting and not adding the word. So now we can use these cursors normally, the start and end, and we are going to set a keyframe on the start and a keyframe on the end. In this case, since I would like to animate both ends, I'm going to set the keyframes on the start and end rather than on the offset, and we're going to move around 1 second in here, and then we're going to simply pick the start cursor and put it right over here, and pick the end cursor and put it right over there. And immediately you can see the keyframe forming right over here. Now, just as we did before, I would like to go to the start of these keyframes in here. We're going to open the animator overall position and we are going to tweak the position values. So we are going to set a keyframe right over here. And then we're going to go to the end right over here and just move this like that, so that it's 100% at the center right over here. Now, what I would like to do is to select these keyframes in here, go to the graph editor, and in this case, I would like the animation to start slowly and then end faster. So I am going to flatten this curve. I'm going to select the end keyframes in here and flatten them the other way. Now let's pick the first keyframes in here and pull the handles in so that we are slow, it goes faster, and end just a little bit slow. So let's see how this whole thing looks. Now I have that text that reveals and it removes like that. So now we can go to the end of this animation here, and I'm going to split this layer. So Shift Command D to split it, and now I'm going to close the values of these and open this one. Let's open the text and see the animators. I would like for now to remove the opacity out animator and even the opacity in animator and just leave the overall position animator. However, in this case, I would actually like to remove any animation on it, just have the animator on there. So let's center this, set it to 0, and then we can type in our next word right over here. So let's double click on that. Perfect. So now we can see that we have this sentence that transitions into just animation which switches to this text right over here. And if we play that, it looks like this. Now, for the next part of the video, we are going to actually go deeper inside Text Animators and see how we can animate word by word in here, and even add some secondary animation to our text animation to make it even more interesting. But before that, I would like to humbly ask you if you can simply like or leave a comment below, or even subscribe if you haven't. This would really help me to reach more people and be able to do more videos like this one. So let's continue. We're going to select this sentence, and since we want to reveal one word at a time, the first thing that we need to do is to actually add another animator in here, and it should be as well an opacity animator. So we are going to rename this to Animator Opacity by Word. Then we are going to set the opacity to 0%. And in this case, with this animator, we want to hide the word. So we want this to just shift to this to be 100% opacity at this point, and then just hide it later on. As we did before, we're going to go to the range selector, go to advanced, and from here, from the mode, we're going to select subtract. So now it starts from this animation, it shifts to this word where it is 100% opacity, and now we would like to hide it to transition to the next sentence. So to do this, we are going to go inside the animator, and we can simply offset from 0% to 100%. We're going to go at this time in here, go to offset, click on that, and move around 1 second and set that to 100%. And now we can see this nice transition from a full sentence to the full sentence removed. Let's select both of these keyframes and press F9 to easy ease them to make them smoother. And now if we see the animation, we can see this nice animation right over here. But this is happening character by character. To change this, we have these options. So let's go to advanced. Now under advanced, the first property is called units. And this is basically where we would select how we would like to animate this sentence. So in this case, we are animating it based on a percentage, but we can also animate it based on the character index. So if we click on index in here, we can see that these shift in here from a percentage to an actual value in here, so 0 to 13. This is set to 13 because there are actually 13 characters in here if we include the spaces. So like this, we can have like more control on each individual character like that, rather than by using a percentage. Most of the times I like to keep this at percentage so that if I change the text in here, the animation stays almost the same. So let's go to the next property, based on, and from here we can change from characters to characters excluding spaces, or even words and even lines. So let's select words, and in this case now the animation would be based on words rather than on characters. And if we play this animation now, we can see exactly what that does. And this is exactly what we want. The only thing that is left in this case is to actually animate the position. So I'm going to open the animator overall position that we did earlier. We're going to set a keyframe at the start right over here, and then we're going to set another keyframe at around here, and we're going to move this so that it is almost at the center of the last word right over here. Now let's pick all of these keyframes. We are going to go to the graph editor, and just as we did before, we're going to pick the initial keyframes in here, the start keyframes, and we're going to click that button. We're going to pick the end keyframes in here and click this button. And in this case, since we are ending, I like to start it slower at the start. So we're going to pull that in like that. If we were revealing the sentence, I would do the opposite. So I would start fast and end slow. But in this case, I would like to start slow and end fast. If we preview that, we can see that disappearing just like that. Perfect. So now we can close these animators, close this layer, and we can simply duplicate this layer. So let's duplicate that, Command D on our keyboard, and let's actually press U in here to see where the animation ends, and we can actually split this layer, Shift Command D to split the layer, and press Delete to delete the last part in here. And now we can move this layer right over here so that we can reveal the next sentence. So in this case, it's going to be a longer sentence. And for this text animation, I would like to create something a little bit more interesting using the same word-by-word approach, but we're going to add some secondary animation. But before we do that, I would actually like to mention this background in here, since I'm sure you're going to ask about it. So this is actually the background that I am using in this case. And for this background, we actually have this null layer that is actually animating this background. So if I move this null layer around, you can see different parts lighting up and different shape layers in here that are actually enlarging in size and so on. We are not actually going to cover this in this tutorial since this is focused on text, but if you would like to see how you can create this, please let me know in the comment section below. We can actually make a whole video on these kinds of backgrounds, so let me know in the comment section below. Let's jump back to our text now, and let's do this text animation here to reveal it. So let's open the text animators. So I'm going to open the text animators for this one. Let's open text. And in here we have the overall position. I'm simply going to remove any animation from these, just as we have done before. And then we are going to go to the animator opacity by word. Let's open that. And we can see our keyframes in here. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to pick those keyframes and move them at the start, right over here. And in this case, I would like to reveal this sentence, and this animation, it is the same animation that we have done earlier, is actually hiding this sentence. So if you remember correctly, all we need to do to fix this is to actually go to the advanced, and from mode, we are going to go from subtract now to add. So now we are actually revealing the sentence instead of hiding it. Now let's very quickly animate the overall position. So let's go to the position, go to the first keyframe right over here, keyframe the stopwatch, go to the end and put another keyframe. Let's go to the first keyframe in here and make sure that we are centered on the first word in here so that the animation happens like this. Now we're going to pick all of these keyframes, go to the graph editor, pick all of these and hit F9, pick the last keyframes in here and pull the handle in. So now the animation starts fast and ends slowly. And that looks perfect. We are not done yet. We want to add some secondary animation. So to do this is going to be very simple. We're going to close the overall position for now and just focus on this one, opacity by word animator right over here. Now the cool thing about these animators is that you can actually use the same animation on the range selector in here. You can see this offset animation right over here and add multiple properties that you will be animating. To do that, you can simply click on that animator, go to add, and from here we can go to property and select another property that we would like to animate, and it could be any property. Let's in this case use a position property, and as you can see now, let's close advanced. If we scroll down, we can see now that we have opacity is set to 0% and we also have position. If we modify the position, so let's make that for instance -30. To see this more properly, I'm actually going to remove the overall position animator in here just to see this, and now we can see that words are falling down as they are being revealed. So now this animator is animating both the position from a position of -30 to a 0 and the opacity from a 0% to 100%. And as you can see, this is happening on each word using the same animation that we have done before. Of course, we can even add more properties to this. So let's select that animator, go to add, and we can add even things like a fill color. Let's select the RGB. Now we can select a fill color, press OK. And now if we see the whole animation, we can see now that we have the animation on the opacity, on the position, and also on the color. And now the sky is the limit with this. We can add even more properties. So we can add something like, for instance, a skew. And we can skew the word in here. And if we play that, you can see this interesting animation happening right over here. Great, so that is basically it as far as text animators go. But if we look at the animation right over here, we can see that the transitions are still quite sharp. So now we are going to see how we can make these transitions smoother so that they are more seamless and you would barely notice when one word shifts into the next. But if you remember correctly, at the start of this video, I have actually mentioned that you can actually create text animation using AI. So let's have a quick look at that and then get back to this part where we can see how we can smoothen up these transitions. More specifically, we will be using Submagic, which is super handy to create things like text captions, like the ones you can see right over here. This was all done using Submagic automatically, but it also can be used to create simple text animation for motion graphics. So let's see how we can do that. In this case, I have this simple video which have my voice, and I'm simply going to upload it to Submagic. So let's go to Submagic. It's a web app, as you can see, and we can simply click on Generate Captions right over here. And we can simply drag and drop our video file right over here. So let's pick our video file, drag and drop it right over there. We can select our language from here, and we can click on Generate Captions. Once you click on that, it will start uploading and generate the captions automatically for you. And when the video uploads, it will take you to this user interface right over here, where you will find all the different text options that you can pick and choose. You can also customize and create your own text from right over here. And in here, you can see a preview of your video. So in here, in this case, you can see the captions right over here. We can customize them to make them bigger, of course. And we can also change the aspect ratio of our video. So if we are going to make them, for instance, for social media, or for instance, for like vertical, we have those options. In this case, I would like this for YouTube. So I'm going to use the original. Perfect. And now I'm going to pick one that I like from here. And let's say I would like to use this one, for instance. Perfect. And we're going to go to customize it. So customize, the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to resize this so that I can see it properly. And I'm going to position it right over here. Let's have a quick look at it. And as you can see, it has done for us these animations automatically. You can choose to use these or even not use them. So in this case, I'm going to go to auto emoji and set that to none to remove them. I just want the text animation, and we can modify things like font very easily. In this case, I'm going to use Poppins, and I'm going to use a font weight of bold and uppercase set to none. Finally, I'm going to go to stroke weight and set that to none. Shadow set to none as well. I like it quite simple, so this looks quite good. And the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to display word, the word count basically of the caption, and we can decrease that to 6 since I like my sentences to be quite short. The last thing would be to change its color, so let's click on that and pick a color from here. This looks good. Now, if we go to the end part in here, I have a mistake in the voice that I have recorded. I have done this on purpose just to show you this feature because it's quite cool. So in here, you can see that we have this but more on that is said twice. So to fix that, we can have the trim option right over here. So let's save this. We can go to trim, give us all the text in here that we have, and we can edit this based on text. So let's unzoom in here to see all our timeline. And we can simply click on remove pet takes. And what this will do is actually it will separate all the takes for us. And we can simply click on the take that is wrong, which is this one, and simply delete clip. And like that, that part has been fixed. This looks good now. I can save and I can go back to caption. If I go to edit captions now, I have all the captions laid out for me in here. I can see how actually they are looking. And here I can notice that AI is typed wrongly. So I can simply double click on that wherever you find a mistake and simply arrange it. I'm going to type in AI, and like that, it is fixed. Another feature that they have is actually that you can arrange the sentences. So I can simply pick this up and put that up, for instance, and this one and put that up as well. I can even do things like split this into a different line, split into a new line. Can go in here and do the same. And let's move this one up like that. And like this, I quite like it. You can have one last look at the video here, how it will look, and then we can just render. To render, it's very easy. Simply go to export and click export. If you'd like more information about this, you can simply check the link in the description below where you will find more information about this and even try it for yourself. Great, so now let's continue and make these transitions more seamless. So we are going to work on this first transition and then move on to the next. The first thing we're going to do, we're going to go to layer, create new, and go to null object. And we're simply going to pick all of these layers in here, and we're going to parent them to that null layer. We are going to rename this to scale, and then we are going to hit S on our keyboard to open scale right over here. So let's zoom up a little bit in here, and the key thing that we are going to talk about is actually hiding these cuts so that it is more seamless. And the way I actually like to do this is to actually use motion to hide these transitions. So let's see how we can do that. I'm going to go to the scale, click on the stopwatch in here, and move a few frames forward, somewhere around here, and let's make that around 160%. And then we are going to move to around where this whole sentence forms, and then we are going to go back to 100%. Perfect, so this is our animation. We start from 100%, go to 160, and then go back to 100%. Now we're going to pick all of these keyframes and hit F9 on our keyboard. We're going to open the graph editor, pick this keyframe in here, and I'm going to pull that in here. So let's zoom up a little bit in here. So now the word starts fast in here, it scales up, and then it slows down right over here. And then we are going to find where the word switches, which is somewhere around here. Now what I would like to do is actually pick this last keyframe in here, and we are going to pull the handle in and make sure that this T part is exactly where the word shifts in here. So what this means is that basically the animation starts fast, goes slower, and then since it's steeper in here, it's very fast, and then ends slower. And what this will actually do is that this fast animation here of the scale will actually hide this transition into the next word. And that looks perfect. The only thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the first word in here, and I'm going to scale it up just a bit, so something like 120%, so that its horizontal size in here matches better the size of the next sentence. And now that is perfect. Great, so now the text animation looks good. The only thing that I'm going to do is I'm actually going to import this 3D pointer that I have done. And of course we can animate this further, but in this case I'm just going to leave it here. And this gives our scene a little bit more character. Now, if you are actually interested on creating these kind of 3D glass objects, I have done a whole video on 3D glass objects, so make sure to check that out. I'm going to leave a link in the description below. Now, finally, another cool way to actually make your text animations even better is to actually put emphasis on specific individual words. I have actually made a whole video on this process and even created a preset that will do this automatically for you. If you would like to check that out, simply check this video right over here.